We are back in the Danneberg shop, wintertime, and back on the 64 Comet Caliente convertible. A few things that I wanted to mention from last video, where we cleaned up all the interior with apple cider vinegar. Got some few comments on that, and also just some general things that I failed to mention while I was doing some of that work. So let's go through that, and then we'll continue on with show sorting parts and cleaning chrome bits for the next parts to go onto this car. So first thing I wanted to mention is after you've painted a car, of course, number one thing is that you don't want the paint to get damaged. So the paint here hasn't been cut polished yet, and that's always good. It's always good to do that near last. You want to do it, of course, before you put on huge body side moldings and things like that that could get caught. Generally what shops will do is do it right away. In a restoration situation, you know, there's a lot of things that can happen during the restoration, and it does get you know, a little bit, you know, not beat up, but you know, micro scratches and dirt and whatnot. So I like to do it, you know, once all the heavy bits are put together, interior, you know, it's running and that kind of thing. So anyways, protecting the paint is critical. So I use these pads here. Any kind of pad you can use. Blankets, I use blankets of all kinds. These are like a medical pad. They're very soft on one side, and they're kind of a I don't know, vinyl or a little tougher material on the other side. So those are great. I also use some foam, different bits of foam. This is a memory foam. I had this over there on the edge of the car when we took the convertible top out. You can see that in the last video, the first video. And now I have it sitting on top of the Boxster, so I can lay the back glass on it while it's relaxing and opening up. And look how nicely it's relaxing. It's almost completely opened right up here. It's got a bit of a crease that'll come right out now. Can warm that up a bit more, but no cracks, no creases, no breaks. That's awesome. So yeah, still going through the parts and pieces of a lot of this. Those are all the interior pits I cleaned in part 2. Which is nice. Door cards I didn't see until now, so I got to get those out and clean those. But I wanted to talk about cleaning things. Okay, back to this apple cider vinegar. This this and regular white vinegar are both acetic. They have a bit of an acid etch property to them. That's why some people like to use them for cleaning and light rust removal. Doesn't really work for rust removal, but some people do put some things in a bath and it takes off a tiny bit of surface rust maybe. This apparently is like 5 to 8% acid, and the white vinegar is just a little higher, like 8 to 10%. So not a lot different, but this stuff just kind of smells more like apples, rotten apples, I guess. So anyways, it worked well on the interior. It hasn't shined it, of course, it just cleaned it. So this will be cleaned one more step with a nice vinyl cleaner and then shined up. And what I want to do is take a nice soft scrub brush and get into here onto all these creases and the stitching so that we can clean the dirt out of the stitching. So that's going to be important. There is chrome that goes on all these pieces. Have to find it and decide how much is covered and see if we want to cut polish any of that, see if we clean it up a bit more. And then this was painted nicely. As you can see, the door innards were painted. The doors were off and painted properly inside and out. Trunk and hood as well were off, painted inside and out. So, you know, it's really nicely done. You know, all the wires were tucked up and are ready to come out for lights and things like that. And yeah, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take some of these chrome pieces. Let's just grab a couple for now. And we're going to put them on the bench, sort them out, see what I need. This is all the windshield pieces here. Got the 2 long ones that I started on last week, and these are the corner pieces. So first is just a bit of a cleaning, and second is I like to use a 00 steel wool to rub them down, and that really shines them up. And then lastly, if needed, then we use the polisher. So this is the parts polisher here. It's got a rough sisal wheel on that side and a very fluffy cotton wheel on this side, and that shines things up, whether it's chrome or stainless steel. Let's see if I can find a piece of stainless to show the difference here. This is mostly chrome in here. Chrome. This is stainless. The windshield wiper arm is stainless. I don't want to drag it out from the bottom here. Let's see if I can grab the other one. Yeah, so that's stainless. That's not chrome, and that polishes up really nicely too. And you can even get quite deep scratches out of that with you can sand it with like a wet 600 or 1000 grit sandpaper, and then you can use the polisher here with the different waxes that go with that. So let's continue. Here's another piece of the windshield, the left windshield upper. Get that over on the bench. So let me get all these pieces out and we'll go over them. All right, I'm on the bench now with just a bit of an example of best ways to do a restoration. Number one, any part you take off, you should try to label it unless it's really self-explanatory, and bag it all together. So here's a little bag of seatbelt bolts. Here's a couple of rubbers, and they are for the COMET fenders, probably fender to hood. And then and I've reused these bags over the years. So at one point it was for the hood. Now these parts are for the mirror, and you can tell that's a mirror retaining ring, and a little bit of the control for the bottom, for the lower of it. Here's all the nuts and bolts for the right fender. This is for the antenna. These would have all been replaced with new bolts, but always good to have for examples, and in case you need one somewhere else, you can trade it off. Here's rear interior hardware, so window winders and their springs, and all the screws for the door cards. And here's one that just says convertible top. Used to say doors, now it says convertible top. So there's all the hardware for the convertible top. Used to be cleaned up, gone through, and sorted. And here's one for front left fender. So there's all the nuts and bolts for the fender. There's the right, and there's the left fenders. So just a few bags that I pulled out of the big box of parts, just to show you all the labeling. And now this is 4 years later, after it was 2 years in body work, and then painted, and then it sat for 2 years, and now it's here. So I wouldn't remember any of this stuff. Here's the gas pedal, taped to the original nut. I'm sure I'll replace that, but still good to have those so you know exactly what size it is. That's key. And yeah, all the parts and things are labeled. Left visor, right visor, left windshield pieces. Here's the left and right windshield corners, as I mentioned. Seat belts are self-explanatory, of course. We'll go through cleaning those up today. Here's the kick panel for the right side, and here's pieces for the interior as well. Those are probably self-explanatory, although right now I couldn't tell you exactly where they go. Window winder panels, I'm guessing, because that looks like a window winder. It goes there, so probably right on the back quarter. Anyhow, those are all the different things. A couple of different things I use to clean up. WD-40 to get any glue or sticky stuff off, very helpful. And over here we have an assortment of cleaners and rust preventatives or rust removers that I use. So of course parts are brake cleaner for really hard to remove things, more solvent based things. The final wipe, this is a very gentle solvent remover, wax and grease remover. A solvent based wax and grease remover. I use that a lot. You've seen that in my other videos. It's generally for final wipe before paint. You wipe down your primer just before you're going to paint, sealer your car before paint, or on the way to paint steps. But it's really good and mild for all kinds of other things, especially rubbers and whatnot. TSP, of course, everybody knows TSP. It's biodegradable heavy-duty cleaner and degreaser. It's good for getting, greasy things that say WD-40 can't get off, or once you've WD-40'd things and it's all gooey. And then Marine Clean. This is a really good industrial strength cleaner. And POR 15. These are supposed to be used together. Metal Prep from POR 15. Now POR 15 is a company, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it. It stands for Paint Over Rust. And a lot of people will just call it POR or POR. And anyways, this is a company that makes some great products, including that paint that I use on a lot of things, which is a one-step paint that an air-dried epoxy is what they call it, an air dry epoxy. Anyways, that's a paint that I use over rust on black things. But this is what I use for, it's a metal etching rust and neutralizer. So it stops rust. It turns the iron oxide, as I said in my last video incorrectly, but I corrected it in the text, turns iron oxide, which is a red rust color, into iron oxide through a chemical reaction, which is an inert black chemical. So it stops rust. And then once you seal it with something like Pore 15 paint, then it cleans it up good. So anyways, let's get to cleaning some of this stuff here, and we'll see what it looks like before and after. All right, got myself a blue towel here, and I'm going to go with the very gentle solvent-based final wipe. These ones here, although they're not solvent-based, they are very strong. This one here, this Marine Clean here, is even though it says non-flammable, non-corrosive, this is for like heavy grease situations, like industrial motors, things like that, all kinds of heavy grease removal of any types, and you can dilute it like 1 to 5 or even up to 1 to 10, and then you got to rinse that off. TSP, same thing. This is good for before you're going to paint something, really, and I suppose it's a heavy duty degreaser as well. So that's actually even good for using in parts cleaning and stuff. And then of course the metal prep, that's like a prior paint or rust remover. So I'm going to use this because it's very gentle, and we're going to start cleaning some of these rubber parts, and the chrome here really probably just needs a wipe off, and then hit it with that 00 steel wool there. And if there's anything sticky on it, to go with WD-40. Now a lot of these things I'm just showing here the quick some of the cleaning methods, because what you want to do is clean them and polish them before you put them together, put them on the car, because they're all labeled, etc. A lot of them are labeled on the top side. They could have been labeled on the bottom side, might have made it cleaning and still keep the label legible, but that often doesn't happen. But anyhow, we'll just get these cleaned up and show again how it's done, and before and after, and then as I go putting parts on each part of the car, then we'll clean them as we go. Here's something that a lot of people don't know. When you're using these kind of products or anything in a can or a bottle or whatever, not to do this. When you do this and you go like that and put it back, if you've wiped something and then you do that again, you're transferring the dirt and the oils and everything from the whatever rag or towel or paper towel you're using back into the can. So you end up starting to contaminate the can of whatever cleaner you're using. So the best thing to do is to drip it on, just drip it on just a tiny bit like that. Wet your whistle, wet your cloth, and then use it from there. Don't keep transferring contaminants back into your can. So let's give this a bit of a wipe here. Do the other side too, and I'm going to try to transfer that label onto the back side just while we're doing this, show you how the steel wool works. See, here's a case where you wouldn't want to put that back on the bottle. Transfer a bunch of that sealant into the thing. So this is a sealer here. This is all got to go. We're gonna have to come up with new sealant to put on there. All stuff that needs to be peeled off of here. It's all hard enough that it just crumbles off generally. And then see how that solvent just softens it up and away it goes. You could also use a WD-40 there, but this is working really nicely here. Try to get under these lips. All this goo here has got to go. If you can't get it off like that, try to use something plastic instead of a metal scraper of any sort. Let's see if I can find me a plastic scraper. Alright, so that's what I found here. This is a caulking knife or a caulking applicator. So it's got a really nice soft rubber pointer there, and it's got a bit of a harder edged plastic scraper there. So I'll just knock that stuff right out of there. Awesome. So anything like that will work. So the glass guys, you want to definitely leave your glass installation to the glass professionals. We have a guy, or used to anyways, I have a guy in Saskatoon at Classic Glass, and he did a lot of classic cars. He could find you those windshields. Found the windshield for my 67 Galaxy convertible, and he put it in, and when he was putting it in, he was telling me about, oh, you need to put sealer here, and these old cars will leak there, and, you know, he knew exactly, you know, not sure if those guys still exist. That was probably 20 years ago, and he was, you know, already a little older at the time. Anyways, hopefully he's transferred his knowledge to somebody, but maybe also on the internet there's some of that information available as we go. So this thing's pretty good here. All the goo is off it anyways. So let's transfer this piece of tape other side. Nice. And then we use the steel wool. So 00 steel wool, double knot they call it in Europe and England. Give that a nice rub, a dub. Doesn't scratch it, just takes off the stuff and gives it a bit of a shine. And then things like this, see how this has been rubbed over the years from the convertible top. Sometimes you'll see that from any seals or underneath the upholstery there, whoever's rubbing. That's definitely going to have to be polished. So on the polishing wheel, that's where that'll get cleaned up. So here's this piece, looking pretty good so far. Definitely doesn't have any junk on it, no goo. Don't really need to do the inside with the steel wool, but just make sure there's no heavy bits of sealer on there. You don't want any of this stuff left on there, or else the new sealer is going to go over top and be all bulged up. So let's go over to the polishing wheel and see if we can't give that a bit of a shine. All right, first things first, when you're about to use, anytime I use the polishing wheel to polish things, I always refer to my compound diagram, I guess, compound information. I keep this in the cupboard a lot of times with the compound, or just somewhere in one of my parts cupboards, so I can always find it. So it always goes from fast cutting to very fine. So the black is very fast, coarse cutting, and then it goes brown, white, and rust colored. So here's black, and you know, you don't use too much of that unless you've really got some heavy scratches you want to get rid of. And then I use a lot of the rust colored and the white, which are the finest ones. I don't even know, do I have any brown? Yeah, this is the brown here. So brown, rust colored, and white are all in there, and the black. They do fall apart because it's kind of big, and then you put it up against the wheel, it falls off or breaks off. What I like to do is first clean the wheel a bit. You can see here it's fairly matted, and this hasn't been used for a while, so that wax any of the compound that's on there. I call it wax, but it's a compound, rubbing compound, and anything else on there is dried up, so it's a little crusty. So I generally use something with a round edge on it like that, and just start with that to knock it off, and then you can turn it to some kind of sharper edge there and knock anything off. I want to be careful, of course. You don't want to get this stuck in your finger or anything, go flying off. And I generally put like a board or something behind it, because this will fling a lot of, you know, of that compound off onto whatever's behind there and make a heck of a mess. A lot of guys will keep this in a corner of their shop, and it's just an absolute mess in the back there. Not only the wool that comes off the wheels, sisal that comes off these wheels, but all that polishing compound comes off everywhere as well. So first thing we do, give it a quick clean up. First thing we do, actually, if we haven't used it for a while, is make sure we've tightened everything's tight and nothing's about to come loose or anything like that. That looks good. That one looks good. Everything looks good. All right. So give it a bit of a rub this way, and a bit of a rub this way, just to loosen up any of that old stuff on there. And that's generally good. Cakes up pretty quick afterwards. So let's start with our Tripoli brown. This one, that's the brown. Put a bit of that on there. Don't need a lot. Comes off pretty quickly there. And then, of course, you're always wanting to keep your part down on the bottom side, because this is rotating this away. And if you touch it on the top side, it's going to fling it right at you. So on the bottom side, start with just gentle pressure. And then if you don't see it anything moving yet, then you can increase the pressure a bit. And it heats up pretty fast, so I got my finger against the back. I can already feel that warming up back there. Make sure too that any edges are down at the bottom ways there, so it's running this way and running off the edge. And that you're wearing safety glasses, of course. Got my spectacles on. Any specks will hit me in that. So you don't want to go like this and touch that edge to there. It's just going to fling it right out of your hand. And that generally hurts. So on this side, just make sure you're going on this side, down that way to the edge, and then turn it over to do this on the side. You can already see that shine coming up. Look at that. Of course, a lot of it's common sense. When you see a rib mark there, a rib line, you want to run that polisher down the edge here, not over the top of it. Alright, so give it a bit more of a clean. A little bit of the white on there. You can see how much compound is on there already. All right, so that's the heavy polishing side. Give it a little bit of a clean here. Use a soft rag, of course. Now, at this point, you can see how shiny that is. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? Mirror shine. But you can still see some of the marks from the wheel. So that's the size of wheel, is very coarse, and that's why now you move it over to the softer wheel on this side. So on this side, on this part of the equation, and on this wheel, I generally don't use the solid waxes. Those are for the size of wheels. Generally use liquid waxes, and there's all kinds, of course. I like this one. Mother's Chrome Polish is excellent, and also this one here is for aluminum wheels and things. I have one of those cone twirlers that you put on your drill. Really good for aluminum wheels. But this is chrome, of course. So we're going to use a little bit of Mother's polish. Give it a good shake. That stuff settles a lot. And just a couple drops directly onto your piece. Oops, a couple drops. Just like shot it all over there. Got a little excited. You got a little excited. Hasn't been used for a while, so got really excited there. There we go. All right, let's give this a go. Don't press too hard on the wool pads. You just want them to shine it up. Otherwise, you'll just mat it up and you won't get much use out of your wheel. So very gentle. I'm just barely holding it on there. Just polishing it up. Look at that. Look at the shine coming up on that. Probably better than new. 60 years. If it doesn't have rust pitting, they generally come up as nice as that. And if you have dents or something in it, there's a lot of ways you can fix these. A lot of repair. Small hammers and a little anvil can go a long way. Just a lot of time, patience, and you can knock things out. And then sand them successive, grades of paper until you've sanded out whatever dent or something that you've made. I see a tiny bit of a wow kind of sometimes here in the reflection when I'm moving this around. Might be something that I press out with your finger. Alright, that's all she takes. And then finally I use a very soft towel like this one. I use this for all my interiors, this kind of towel. I'm not exactly sure what it's made of, but it sure is nice. Let's see what it says here. All it says is made in China, of course. No softener, no bleaching. Terry World. So I guess it's a terry cloth. 80% polyester, 20% polyamide. Highly man-made. Very, very soft. Anyways, we use a combination of whatever we need. So there's the first piece for the Comet. A lot of this is sitting on a stool and buffing and being careful not to let it get flung out of your fingers. But if you can see, all those marks went away. Still some compound on here. All those wear marks from the convertible top, rubbing it over the years, all gone. And then the last thing we can put on here if we want is a little bit of wax. So we can do a little bit more if we wanted to. Still a couple of wheel marks that can be filled in. There's another compound called Final Cut, Final Polish. That'll take out swirl marks. But I think that looks pretty nice. What do you guys think? So, quick steps again, a quick review. Don't forget, make sure things are tight before you start these. Then clean them first with something very kind of rounded and soft, And then if you need to, put something pokey in there just to make sure you got these sisal wheels cleaned and that it's not caked up. But this one is, it does get caked up and it's for polishing. They will start to come apart, and when they start to get too ragged, you got to change them. And then these ones here, these soft wool pads, you want them to be nice and uncompacted. You want them to stay fluffy and not get too dirty. If they do, you can wash them. You can certainly wash them in water, warm water, and maybe some of that degreaser would clean these, and then dry them really well. And you get a little bit more use out of it that way. And this is just a 6-inch bench mount buffer from Princess Auto, which is Canada's Harbor Freight. It's been a great item. I just threw it on a basic stand there. Easy to move around. And yeah, that's the result you get after 5 or 10 minutes of polishing. Lovely. Back to the bench here, we'll check out the before and after. That's a before and after, all right. See, there's still some of those wheel marks that I can get out. A little bit more polishing. Those will all come right out. But definitely a big difference from that. You don't want to do something like this, of course, on the wire wheel, because these edges will get caught, and this is a very delicate piece. Look how we've maintained all this stuff, all original, 60-year-old nameplates, especially this Caliente script plate. That's very delicate. Taken off very carefully, stored carefully, and put back. All right, let's try a variety of different items here. So we got this gas pedal. First of all, we'll take this bolt off that's taped on here. Should actually be 2 of these. Needs 1 for each of those holes. Oh, there are 2 actually. 1, 2, perfect. All right, and I think this solvent again is probably going to be a good start. Drip, 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 not pat, pat, pat. There's lots of, paints and sealants and stuff. Sealants and things that you can put on rubber. There's that stuff. There used to be this really magical stuff that you could put on all the hard vinyl parts, black vinyl parts on your car, and they'd come up really nice and renewed. Maybe it was called Renew, actually. I tried that one time last year, and I also had a black rubber compound that painted these, but I don't know if I have that stuff anymore. Right now, a lot of this is just you want to make sure you get all the grime out of these edges here. Again, back to our plastic scraper. Get all these cleaned out. Now this is just an old schooly, certainly not drive-by-wire pad. It's a pad that just rests up against the lever on the floor right there. I don't even know if it's glued there. Looks like it might have been epoxied at one point. And then it just leans up against it. I might need something a little sharper to get in those edges. Dental picks. Let's try these. Fairly coarse one here. Oh yeah, it's scraping a lot of goo out of there. 60 years of foot traffic. Come on. Oh yeah, look at that. There's probably a million ways to do this, a million ways to skin a cat, as they say. So use what you have. Be creative. A lot of this part is just patience, and the more you clean things right now, the nicer everything goes together, and of course looks once it's together. So this is the tedious, hard part of restoration, but it's also the most enjoyable because, you know, taking off rusty parts and doing body work, you know, that can get really tedious, and especially sanding filler and sanding primers. That's dirty work. You gotta love doing a restoration to get all that done. And I've done a lot of them for myself and for others. Anyhow, this is just, you know, you're cleaning things up, you're renewing, you're taking old stuff, making it look new again, making it look good again. It's very satisfying. Very satisfying. So yeah, it's definitely enjoyable work, especially once your car starts coming apart with clean parts on it. I mean, coming together, sorry, not apart. Coming together with all clean parts on it that look all new and shiny, and you're the one that's done it. Let's shine them up. Look at all that dirt that came out, holy. I was rubbing with the rag too soon. I remember one of the first main cars I did, I think I mentioned it before. Where's a picture of it here somewhere? Was a, hang on a second. That's it there. It's a terrible picture, but that's a 1966 Valiant Signet hardtop, which is actually a very padded roof. Original Krager SS rims, bias ply tires, road huggers. And yeah, tons of chrome on this car. All the edges had chrome on them. Fender edges, all the way along there, all around here had chrome. Bottom sills, these big flares on here were all chrome. This was all stainless, just like this car that I'm doing. And yeah, a lot of time polishing. Interior, we did all in leather. This was, like, say, padded white vinyl. And yeah, it was gorgeous. But a lot of time in cleaning, polishing, scraping. Of course, that's what my dad had me doing to learn the trade. Not sure how much I learned about the trade doing that, but it was a great car. Of course, being the idiot I was, I sold it to pay off a credit card. And that's how things go. It's not the worst tale, though. Every time, I hope I haven't mentioned this tale too many times, but when I mention letting go of cars, I'm sure everybody has a story. You can let me know yours in the comments. But I one time traded a 64, maybe it was it was a 68. 68 Mustang convertible, 289, in pretty good shape. I used to drive it all around, had a good top on it, a nice 289 in it. Traded that for a computer in 1986, I think it was. That was before the internet. So the computer did nothing. Unless you put like a disk in it and you know, you could do some basic accounting or something. It really did nothing. When I turned it on at home the first day, it had a, you know, blinking green light for DOS. And I said to my buddy, well, what was that? Is that all it does? He's like, yeah, pretty much that's all it does, unless you put a disk in and, you know, open that up and see what's on there, or add some figures up or something. I was like, oh my God, biggest mistake of my life. Of course, I traded it to the body shop owner that I was working for, and he fixed up that Mustang, painted it. We probably sold it for 10 grand at the time, which would have been like 40 now. Anyhow, love lost. All right, this thing looks pretty good. What do you think for a gas pedal? For a gas pedal, If I wanted, I could buy some of that black rubber paint and give it a coat. But this is original. No covers. I still see a bit here and there. Goo in here. I need something a little more coarse than that even. Oh, maybe that's it. Yes. A little more. Whoa, careful. Okay, we're going to call that mostly done. Looks nice. Alrighty, put away these dangerous tools. Another one. And let's look at these two pieces for the back. First we'll get rid of this goo here. Don't want to put the parts I'm trying to clean on top of all this stuff. All right, on the other parts that were really large and they weren't quite this dirty, I used the apple cider vinegar. This one I'm going to use diluted spray 9. Let's see how that works. I've used spray 9 a lot on interiors, and it always seems to do a good job. It's definitely not corrosive like the solvent is. I wouldn't want to put solvent on anything vinyl related, because I could take the color off. See, this barely will take this grease off. It will with a little bit of elbow grease, but elbow grease for the grease. Mostly just something wet to get this dust off here. It's all sanding dust from the high build primer that landed on all these parts that were in the garage together. This is all beneath a plastic trim ring that the window winder would go over top of. And this bit's down here is obviously behind the back seat, I would think. So this is, you know, shrunk over time. Not a lot you can do with that. Should all get hidden by the back seat again and by the trim pieces. So hopefully that's the case. This stuff's all in pretty good shape, so I think a lot of this is just going to go back in original. The owner doesn't want to spend, you know, $100,000 on a '64 Comet, even though it's worth that to her. Sentimentally, you don't want to do that to somebody unless they really have the means, and or the car is worth, you know, close to that at least. I did a 66. A lot of my cars were 66 or so, so that's why I get them mixed up. 66 International Harvester 4x4 S120 for some people that, you know, had money. And it was their dad's original truck, and he used it for farming and for around the beach, you know, a campsite property that they own, and they wanted, you know, to use it again for that, to look good doing that kind of work around the campsite. And so they wanted it done right, so that thing was done right. And you know, it was probably 60 grand, and you know, the vehicle definitely not worth that. Probably worth a fair amount, but not that. But had I counted my own labor, I probably spent that on a couple of vehicles. A 73 Dodge Challenger that I did, white on white on white, and as well a what's the other one that I did that would have been that much? Not the Galaxy. The Galaxy I did cheap. That one probably had a lot of money. That was actually a lacquer paint job those old days. Many coats of lacquer and then polished in between. That's what you did in the old days. And then it cracked because it was so thick. All right, we got those seat belts over in the sink. So let's go over there and get those washed up. All right, we're here in the laundry room, and we got the seat belts here, there. And what I'm going to use in this case is this TSP. So this is a good degreaser and cleaner, and we're going to dilute it. I think it said 150 mils of TSP and 4 liters of warm water. Well, I hate it when they do that. Why don't they just go 1 part per so many parts? Cleaning painted surfaces, preparing surfaces for painting. Oh, feels good. 100 mils, eh? Maybe I should find a measuring cup. Okay, so I went and asked my beautiful brainiac of a spouse, and she says that a cup is 250 mils. So half a cup is 125 mils. So a little less than half a cup. All right. About that. And that's probably about 4 liters. All right. Give that a mix. And we're going to put in our seat belts. I think we can let these soak for a while. Give them a bit of a scrub-a-dub-a-dub. Oh, I can see the dirt coming off them already. It's pretty dark in here, I know, but I will put them under lights later. You can see if the color came back. That's really what we want, is for the color to come back. This warm water is making them nice and loosey-goosey too. Look at that. It's going to make them straighten right up. That water is dirty. Okay, I think actually what I'll do is I'll get rid of this. Put a fresh batch in. Give them a I guess I'll start on the finish up that windshield surround molding so that we can get the windshield sorted, ordered, and ready to be put in. All right, so here they are afterwards. I put them on this rack to dry, and they do feel dry. So yeah, the color came back fair amount. Almost acceptable on
on a save restoration. These, we're going to find the right paint for these. It looks just like a Ford blue, so we'll paint these up. That'll be nice, and we'll polish these on the probably on the wire wheel. Just get this grime off there. It's probably all hidden anyways under this plastic, but and then this side we'll polish on the polisher. So yeah, we'll also polish the bottoms of these buckles, and I think it looks okay. So that's the seat belts. Let's get on to something else.
All right, a little bit more steel wool action here. This is the tail light bezel. This has dust and overspray on it and rust. Little tiny specks of red rust that you can see there. That's surface rust. And then unfortunately it has pitting too. That's not going to go away. So once we have this chrome cleaned with the steel wool, got all the dust and dirt and overspray and everything off of it, then we're going to hit it with that metal ready. The metal ready should change that rust, like I said, from the red rust to a black inert rust, and we'll see if that makes the overall look of this any better. This is going to be a survivor type restoration, so we're not going to re-chrome these pieces if we can help it. If they're bad enough, we might try to buy another piece from another car that's in better shape, or over the years the owners can, you know, find things and replace them as they come up. You know, as you find things, it's a fun hobby to keep an eye out for car parts. If you're into your car, you really love it, and you find something that's even better shape, then buy it and have somebody transfer it out or just change it out yourself. That's one thing I always loved doing. I did my Galaxy convertible over a long period of time. I found a lot of these parts over several years. So here's a good example of this car's been painted before, and there's white where this got masked off. Certainly not from this paint job because everything's been taken off, but that was obviously last time it was repaired and restored. And the steel wool will take all that off. There we go. Cleaned all that right up. Now if we can just get this surface rust sorted. Oh, I was saying, I found all these parts over time. These lenses, I couldn't find them at the beginning. I sourced those over time. The clear ones in the front bumper as well. I sourced those over time, changed them out. A few different things. You know, pieces from the interior took a long time to find, and put them on when the time came. This is the metal prep. De-rusting agent. Rust converter. Ugh. Hard to open. Come on. Oh my god, come on, old man. Push to turn. Alright. A little bit on here.
Now the longer this sits on rust, the better. But on a surface like this, it's hard to keep it on there. So you just gotta wipe it on a bunch of times. Alright, so we'll see how that works out, and then we'll give it a little polish with some chrome polish, clean out the insides, put her back. And check out how this cleans up the backside too, before and after right there. Check out how this cleans up all the years worth of grime on the backside here. This is not chrome, this is just pot metal of what it would be. But steel wool just scrapes all that grime right off there. Pot metal, definitely not something you want to have to try to weld. It's got an instantaneous low melting point, and I've been somewhat successful welding it a couple times, and somewhat not very unsuccessful, or successful in melting it to a pool of nothingness a couple of times. So you have to be super careful on different metals, and pot metal is one where you start heating it up, and you're trying to get it to just a soft state, and then you add your filler rod. But just past that soft state, it just goes away. It just melts a giant hole into it. And then you never get that filled back up. It's gone. So there's probably better methods. There's certainly better people at doing it than I was, but it's a tough one. I've heard from others that did a lot of it. That's tough. Probably why they went away from pot metal to plastic. I need some more steel wool. Let's give this one more wipe with the metal ready. I think I see the red stuff going away, the red oxide rust. That's the pitting, and that red stuff that I pointed out earlier. Can hardly see it now. Should turn black. Alright folks, well, I'm hoping to get this video out tonight. Whether I do or not, it is Christmas time. It is very cold outside. I know it's cold right across the nation of Canada and most of the U.S. Certainly the eastern side of the U.S. Very, very cold and snowy. So people are suffering with what we've been used to, had to live with for a long, long time. And I don't feel good for them. You know, I'm not the type of person that says I don't feel bad for them. I do feel bad for them. It's tough, especially if you're not used to it, if you don't have the systems available, and you know, if your power goes out or something, and you're not set up for your power going out. Speaking of which, if your power goes out, and even if it doesn't, you really should be ready with a system called an inverter. Now, a lot of people immediately go to a generator, and I have a generator. I have a nice Honda generator. If you don't use that thing for a couple of years, gas goes bad in it, and it's hard to start. So because we live in Saskatchewan, I check it every year in the fall and make sure it is going to run, clean out the gas and clean out the carburetor if I need to, and make sure it's going to run. But
A lot of people aren't in that frame of mind, or don't have a generator, or have to go buy one when the worst is the worst and everybody's trying to buy one. So one thing everybody should have is an inverter. So an inverter is basically just a very inexpensive electronic device that changes battery DC power to electrical AC power. And so every car is basically a generator, let's say. Semantics are, being what they are. You can turn your car with an inverter into a generator, because a generator is something that uses gas power to make electricity and generally makes AC power. So you can plug in things like power tools or your lights, or especially your furnace. And most people, their furnaces are not set up to be plugged in. They're hardwired into their house. So my next video is how to do that. How to hook up an inverter to your furnace and to your car, and if power goes out, heat your house. That's the number one thing I would do, is heat my house. You can have battery powered lights, you can have a flashlight, you can sit around in the dark, but you can't sit around in the cold, and you certainly wouldn't want your house to get below freezing. So let's go over to the polishing wheel again and buff up this last bit while I read you a Christmas story. All right, gang, from Danneberg's Acres to you. Wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I hope you guys watch more of my videos in 2023. Thanks all. Oh, battery died. What? Gotta jumpstart this thing. All right, doing a lot of time, little repairs on the old Galaxy here, Christmas Galaxy. Oh yeah, look at those battery. But the battery's corroded. The terminals are corroded. Terrible. It's been sitting there a little too long. I have to buy me a new battery. All right, let's jumpstart this thing. Okay, now as I was saying, from my family to yours,